Thank you very much, Mike, for inviting me. And following the tradition started by Jason, can we please give Mike a big round of applause? Thank you very much.
There's a whole team behind you, so.
For the whole team, then, an even bigger round of applause. I'm going to talk today about something which is very hobby level-like, and I'm going to talk about challenges in creating a token rewarding healthy lifestyle. But before that, I want to start with some very minor details. I don't know how many of you noticed what shoes Jason has. Jason wore Vibrams, okay? This is something extremely, almost Vibram. Always, yeah. And I'm also wearing Sauconys, which is my favorite running shoes. I don't know if you heard about it, but it's something very useful if you run ridiculously long distances. And before getting to that, I have another thing which is very related to what Jason does. This wasn't planned, but I just heard this news this morning. I just bumped into this news this morning. One of the early Bitcoiners, nobody knows his name, realized that he amassed too much Bitcoin. He had like almost 10,000 Bitcoin. And he decided he won't spend that. And he started a fund, and he gave it away to charity. You know the guy? Pineapple Fund, exactly. Pineapple Fund. And this is something that somehow restores my hope in humanity. You know? People just realize we have already too much. Let's give back. And this is worth like 186 millions worth of dollars. Okay? So there is hope in humanity. Back to our thing. I need to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm, as Naomi said, an independent consultant, but I'm a programmer by trade. I'm a coder. I code in whatever language you want to, and if I don't know it, I probably learn it in 1 or 2 weeks. And by the time I started to become interested in blockchain, like this happened back in 2012, 2013, I also started another activity, which is running. I ran my first marathon in 2012. Okay, my second marathon in 2013, my first ultra marathon in 2014, which was a 60-kilometer. Then, as a training for the next ultra marathon, I ran by myself 100K, which is coming from Comarnic to Bucharest. Those of you in Romania know what I'm talking about. I actually ran a whole night together with Andrei Roșu. How many of you heard of Andrei Roșu? Okay, a lot of people, okay. He's now starting an Atlantic Ocean cross by rowing in a boat. He's actually in La Gomera in Spain. I started this introduction to show you this. This is the longest race I ever did. This is a full lap around Lake Balaton in Hungary. And this lap is about 222 kilometers. So I ran this in 2015. It took me 31 hours and a half, and I felt great when I recovered. Okay. Nevertheless, when you run ridiculously long distances, you get to think about a lot of stuff, okay? Your mind has to be controlled. Your mind has to run on something. And at that point, the seed of creating a token rewarding healthy lifestyle was created by, this is the inception of the running coin. So I decided to name it, by lack of any other appropriate name, Runcoin, okay? So when I created this token, I thought, who else is going to use this? How can you actually test the fact that people are going to run it? Because, you know, in blockchain, although this is pretty recent, you have this strategy: create a great white paper, hire a marketing team, start for an ICO, push, make a lot of money, and then think if you deliver, okay? Then think if there's actually something going on with your thing. So I decided to make a manual distribution. This happened last year. So I invited a few of my friends from Steemit.com. I hang around a lot in Steemit.com, and I'm also a big supporter of Dan Larimer products, Beachers, Steemit, PeerPlays also is one of his brainchild, and lately EOS. So I asked my friends if they would run. So I said, post your Strava, your Garmin race, and I reward you with these tokens. Previously, I created the tokens on the Bucharest blockchain. This is an user-issued asset. You can find it. You can trade it. It's live there. It's quite easy to create a token these days. It's absolutely trivial to make your own token. So I said, I will give you $1 worth of Runcoin. So I got consistent interest for a small niche because the distribution lasted like 2 months. Every 10 days, I was asking people, come on, run. And I got a little bit of interest. Out of the 20 people that were consistent runners in my followership, like 15 caved in and said, OK, let's do this. So I distributed a little bit of Runcoin to them. And I got to the point where I said, this might work. This might work. So challenge number 2. So imagine how this works. You get out on the streets. You start running with what? With a phone, with a Garmin watch, with a Suunto watch, with whatever, with something with a GPS in it that will validate your race. Introducing Pokemon. How many of you know about Pokemon? You know? About the same as Andrei Roșu. I don't know what is the connection here. So you know that in Pokemon there is this gaming attempt where people are programmatically accessing the GPS of the device and faking the fact that they discovered Pokemon or faking their location. So what would you do? How would you prevent people from gaming the system if you were to validate such a race? So I started as a programmer. The first thing I thought is there's an API for that. There must be an API for that. If you run into trouble, look for an API and you'll find the answer. So I started an integration with Strava. Okay? The integration is on the works right now. It's testing. And for each race, you get a certain amount of token. But then I bumped into another challenge, which is the challenge number 3. Okay? What if people will log into Strava, go out, and just put the device on a vibrator on their plate and says, OK, Strava, record my race, or stuff like that. So I come to this idea, which I think it can be extended into other areas. You'll see down the road. It can be extended into other areas of our lives, which is trustable third-party agent. And this brings to a conversation about the amount of decentralization and centralization for various real-life events. Sometimes a limited amount of centralization is good. Okay? It has to be there. It has to be a little bit of delegated trust into something or into a team. Incidentally, the blockchains that we talked about, Dan Larimer introduced the concept of delegated proof of stake. Sometimes you have to delegate a little bit of trust in order to make things work, not only be the delegator yourself like in mining. So what I realized is that the higher amount of accuracy in identifying real-life races is to have space-time bounded events enforced by a third party. And by space-bound events, I understand official marathons when there is the task of the organizer to do whatever diligence they have to do in order to make sure that everybody finished the races. And they also provide timing, and they also provide DNF or did not finish or whatever. Or parkrun-like competitions. How many of you know about parkrun? Oh, how many of you are from UK? OK, you need to dig into this because it's kind of big. In UK, small parenthesis, parkrun is a popular running event that takes place in UK every Sunday. It's races for 5K to 10K in some parks. It's called parkrun. And it's massively popular. It's hugely popular. And they also give you the timing and tracking device. So you don't have to have only official marathons, but also challenges that have a certain degree of popularity and trust. So we decided to give limited access for direct validation via hardware devices because hardware devices are hackable. Okay, you can hack into it and game the system. So these are the three main challenges that I ran into when I created Runcoin, which, by the way, is a hobby project, something that I do in order to pair my passion for running with curiosity for blockchain. So what I learned is that tokenizing real-life activities is more difficult than mining Bitcoin, although it seems a little bit simpler. I also learned that decentralization is not necessarily sufficient in tokenizing activity. Some degree of centralization is needed. And here we came to a very sensitive area, political election. How can we trust that political elections are okay? How can we push decentralization into the area of civic implication? We will always vote in real time for our leaders. How this will happen? Elections, like a type of centralized event, needs to have a certain type of modeling, and I'm still working on the way and the how we can model these events. One practical thing that I'm going to do, I'm aiming to leverage smart media tokens. Smart media token is the next iteration of the Steemit platform, where everybody can create their own token for their own blog and thus monetizing their online presence. And the last thing that I learned is that building trust is a volatile process and needs constant reinforcement. So that's why I'm very grateful for the trust you gave me to entertain you for 15 minutes with this talk. Thank you.